All right, hello again, seventh graders. I'm making this video to kind of help you out with the March 31st and April 1st assignment. I'm sorry I'm not posting it earlier, but if you haven't gotten started, you still have Wednesday to do these couple questions. They want us to go over packet page number 4, and then you should have been working on, hopefully you did 1 through 5 on Monday and 6 through 15 on Tuesday. If you didn't do these yet, what I'm going to go over today will kind of help you out with these two assignments here. So let me go ahead and go over to the notes that they want you to go over, which is experimental versus theoretical. Okay, so these are the two different types of probability that you are going to be working with, or you probably already been working with. And so we're working with experimental and probability. So experimental is found by repeating an experiment and observing the outcomes. So the probability of an event happening is the number of times the event occurs over the total number of trials. This is what makes it the experimental probability. You're actually trying it out. You're doing trials. And so you're writing down or graphing or putting in a table how many times each event occurs, okay? So for example, a coin is tossed 10 times. That's going to be this number here, right? The total number of trials. A head is recorded 7 times and a tail is recorded 3 times. So the probability of getting a heads when you flip the coin is 7 out of 10, whereas the probability of getting tails is 3 out of 10, because in the experiment, you got it 7 out of 10 times. And here you only got it 3 out of 10. Okay, so 3 out of 10, 7 over 10, that's the experimental probability. Now, theoretical probability is what should happen, what your odds actually are. So theoretical probability is what is expected to happen based on mathematics. So the probability of event is the number of favorable outcomes, the number of times that event can occur over the total possible outcomes, not the number of trials, but the possible outcomes. So if you have a coin, there's only 2 sides to a coin, right? One side is head, one side is tails. So you have a 1 in 2 chance of getting heads and a 1 in 2 chance of getting tails. Okay, pretty simple. All right. So you have half a chance of getting heads, half a chance of getting tails. Now, this experiment didn't really match up with the theoretical, but technically those are your odds, 1/2. Okay. So you all are actually going to be working, you should have been working on these prior pages. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, that's what you should have done. Okay, and then you should have started here on 6, 7, 8, 9, they think to like 15. Okay, I'm going to answer a couple of these just so you can kind of see. I'm not going to go through all of them because, of course, you're supposed to be doing this work, but I just kind of want to give you some examples of what it is they're kind of looking for. Okay, so this question kind of got answered for you already. What is a theoretical probability that the coin will land on heads? What are your odds? Okay, you have a 1 and 2 chance of getting heads because there's only 2 sides to a coin. And how many of those sides are heads? Only 1. Okay, so you have a 1 in 2 chance theoretically. Now, if you look at the second one, it says if the coin is flipped 140 times, how many times would you predict that the coin lands on heads? Okay, so it doesn't say on heads, but I'm assuming because the picture's here. So if you're flipping it 140 times and you're telling me that the theoretical probability is 1/2, I want to know how many times out of 140 is it going to land on heads? Well, you're going to write your 2 fractions out. I don't know what this number is, right? That's what I'm looking for. But I know that I want it equal to 1/2, right? Because that's your theoretical probability. So what you do here is you cross multiply. So I'm going to multiply the 140 and the 1, right? So 140 times 1 is 140. And then I'm going to divide by that third number that's not there. Technically, you would cross multiply again, and let me show you that way. So I'm going to cross multiply 2 times x, and that's going to give me 2x. So 2x, which is these 2 right here, is equal to 140, which is these 2 right here. So once I have 2x equals 140, I would divide by 2 to get the x by itself, isolate the variable. So now my new problem is x equals 140 divided by 2. And then I would go ahead and divide 140 by 2, and I would get 70, right? Because 2 goes into 14 7 times, that's 14. Bring down to 0, 2 goes into 0, 0 times. So 70 would be your answer, x equals 70. I would predict that it's going to land on heads 70 times based off theoretical probability, okay? Now, Johnny flipped it 450 times, and then it gives you results. So here, he actually did the trials. He did the experiment. Now, did he get it half and half? No, these numbers would have to be the same if it was half and half. So his not his experimental probability didn't match up with his theoretical probability. So what is the experimental probability that the coin lands on heads? How many times did it land on heads? They want to know from the experiment, how many times did it land on heads? 240, right? Out of how many possible trials? 450. Okay. So I know that some of you are going to want to leave it like this. I know in the last video I told you, because the video is kind of running on kind of long, that I would talk about simplifying on the next one. Okay, so simplifying, basically what you're doing is you're finding common factors. You're finding a number that I can divide both 240 and 450 into. Now, factoring or simplifying it gets better once you practice it more and more. Okay, so I've been teaching 7 years already, so of course I can tell, both of these end in a 0, I'm going to divide by 10, right? So when I divide both numbers by 10, I'm going to get 24 over 45. Okay, now once I get here, that's not the greatest common factor. Okay, there's another number that would go into there where you would only have to divide once. But once I get here, I'm going to have to look for a number that goes into 24 and into 45. Okay, so me knowing my factor rules, I know that 3 goes into both of these numbers. Okay, so I'm going to divide both of them by 3, and I'm not going to show the work because it's going to take a while. But 24 divided by 3 is going to be 8, and 45 divided by 3 is going to be 15. Okay, once I get to this spot right here, I cannot divide it by any. There's no common factor that I can divide both of those numbers by. So this is simplified completely, all the way to its lowest terms, 8 over 15. Now, it doesn't necessarily say to put the simplest terms here on this question, but just know that in your STAR test, they will ask for the simplest terms in most of your problems. So knowing how to simplify is something that you need to practice on. If you're having problems with it, please let me know. But simplifying is very important, okay? Because in the STAR, your answer choices are always going to be simplified, okay? And just to go over a couple more before I kind of end the video, these right here, they're talking about theoretical, right? So what's the probability of not getting a 2 on a dice? Well, how many of the sides are not 2? Well, there's only one side that is 2, so that means that the rest are not 2, which is 5 out of 6, okay? 3 or 5. How many are 3? How many are 5? There's one that's 3, 1 out of 6, I'm sorry. And there's one that's 5, that's another 1 out of 6. So when I add those together, I get 2 out of 6. Or when I simplify, 1/3. Okay, so I have a 1 in 3 chance of getting a 3 or a 5. Okay, you're gonna keep doing that for the rest of these questions. Make sure you know if you're working with experimental or if you're working with theoretical. And look at your table, like this table right here, that tells me it's going to be experimental, right? But if it just gives me a spinner and doesn't give me how many times it landed on what, that's going to be theoretical. And any of these colors, I have a 1 in 4 chance of getting any of those colors. If it asks about 2 colors, then it's going to be a 2 out of 4 or 1/2. If it asks about, not 1, then it's going to be 3 out of 4. Because, like, let's say it says not blue, right? So there's 3 out of 4 colors that are not blue, okay? So again, if you have any questions, guys, please feel free to message me or leave a comment on the Google Classroom page. If there's any parents out there that are watching, you might have come across the YouTube video, leave a comment on there. I'll try to answer any questions, or however it is that you found the video. Try to get a hold of me so I can help you all out. I don't have any students that are signing on Google Classroom right now, and I kind of have an itch to kind of teach. So if you need some help with something, please let me know, and I'll kind of help you out as best as I can. All right, guys, thank you.